welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written in Indianapolis by Adrian Peterson, and produced in the studios of shortwave station WRMI in Okeechobee, Florida. I'm Jeff White. Today on Wavescan, radio broadcasting in the land of the Three Rivers, Diamond Jubilee celebrations, Australian DX reports, and our special QSL of the week, nostalgic memories of the first radio broadcast. Throughout the Indian subcontinent, there are several major river systems running from the higher land areas down through the populated plains and into the adjacent ocean areas. On the western side of the subcontinent, a system of 5 rivers runs from the edge of the high Himalayas down into the verdant Punjab lands, where they combine into the great Indus River and onwards into the Arabian Sea at Karachi. On the eastern side of the subcontinent, a system of 3 rivers runs from the high Himalayas down into the verdant lands and onwards, where they combine into the massive delta areas at the mouths of the Ganga and onward into the Bay of Bengal. These eastern rivers are known by several different names in various local and international languages, though the better-known names would be Ganges and Padma, originating in Uttarakhand, Brahmaputra, Jamuna, originating in the Angsi Glacier in Tibet, Menga, originating in the hilly areas of East India. The confluence of these 3 rivers and the mouths of the Ganges forms the largest delta area on planet Earth, with a myriad of small and larger islands stretching 1,500 miles across from Kolkata to Chittagong. During the past nearly half-century, new islands and extensions to adjacent landscapes with a total area of more than 40 square miles have been formed by silt flowing down from the high mountain ranges. Ancient history informs us that the earliest settlers came into the territory, now known as Bangladesh, some 4,000 years ago. These were the early Dravidians and Proto-Burmese peoples. The ancient Greeks and Romans were familiar with the people, who they called Gangaridae, that is, the people of the land of the Ganges. Islam came to Bangladesh while part of India in the 1100s AD, and when European explorers entered the territories for trade some 400 years later, it is suggested that the Bengal territory was the wealthiest part of the Indian subcontinent. In that era, the Portuguese, French, and Dutch showed an interest in the area, and the English gained control in 1757. Bangladesh has known its share of mega disasters, and in 1943 it is reported that 3 million people died in what is called the Great Bengal Famine. Then in 1970, some authorities estimate that 1 million people died overnight during a horrendous cyclone in the Bay of Bengal. If that figure is correct, it would have to be the worst flooding upon planet Earth since the time of the flood in the days of Noah. Then in 1988, disastrous flooding in the delta areas resulted in 30 million refugees. Bangladesh, East Bengal, was separated from India and became the eastern wing of Pakistan at the time of partition, midnight between August 14th and 15th, 1947. And then again, Bangladesh declared independence, and then achieved independence from Pakistan on December 16th, 1971. These days, Bangladesh is just a small country territorially, stretching less than 500 miles from north to south and less than 300 miles wide. Yet the population density is one of the most concentrated upon planet Earth, with more than 150 million people. The land areas of the country are almost entirely surrounded by India, with a short border with Burma, and their capital city is Dhaka, with 12 million inhabitants. The border between Bangladesh and India contains the strangest anomaly of enclaves and ex-enclaves in any part of the world. It's estimated that there are 300 of these little territories that are separated from the nearby mother territory, covering a combined total of 50,000 acres and containing 150,000 people. In some places, the enclave is separated from the mother territory by less than a mile, and it contains a separate territory within its own borders. We'll talk about radio in Bangladesh right after this message from Alan Graham.
You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Send your comments and reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229 in the United States. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229 in the USA. Or you can email us at wavescan@awr.org. Our email once again, wavescan@awr.org.
The first prominent wireless experimenter in old British India was a Bengali scientist, Dr. Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose. He was born in Manshganj, near Dhaka, East Bengal, in 1858, though he performed his wireless experiments in neighboring Calcutta in West Bengal, India. It was towards the end of the year 1894 that Bose began his experimentation with wireless, and in November 1895 he gave a public demonstration in the Calcutta Town Hall, with Bengal's Lieutenant Governor, Sir William Mackenzie, in attendance. In this public demonstration, Bose transmitted wireless signals at a wavelength of just 1/2 inch over a distance of 75 feet through several solid walls. He also used a wireless signal to ring a bell at a distance and to fire a gun remotely. On 2 separate occasions, Bose gave public lectures in London, England, in which he presented details of his wireless experiments in Calcutta, India. His 1897 lecture was before the Royal Institution, and 2 years later his lecture was before the Royal Society. In his 1899 presentation, Bose gave details of the coherer receiver that he had developed, and it is understood that the young Italian experimenter Marconi incorporated the Bose coherer in his own subsequent public demonstrations in England. There is no known historic record in the earlier days of any wireless or radio experimentation in the territory that became Bangladesh. Neither were there any wireless communication stations in this area. Perhaps there were a few expatriate and local amateur radio station operators on the air in places like Dhaka and Chittagong before World War II, but no known records have been discovered. There was just one lone radio broadcasting station on the air in the Bangladesh territory while it was part of India under the British Raj. In those days, All India Radio was beginning to establish its nationwide empire of medium-wave and shortwave radio stations throughout India, and one such facility was installed in Dhaka. This new station that was installed in Old Dhaka in 1939 was inaugurated with due ceremony on December 16th, with 5 kilowatts on 1167 kilohertz under the call sign VUY. The studio for AIR VUY was installed in a rented house at 62 Nazimuddin Road in Dhaka 11, though this was soon afterwards transferred to Shabang, which lies in the capital city area between Old Dhaka and New Dhaka. The transmitter was installed in nearby suburban Kalyanpur. The original location on Nazimuddin Road is now the locale for the Sheikh Burhanuddin College. At the time of partition in 1947, the lone radio broadcasting station, VUY, with its 5 kilowatts on 1167 kilohertz, was the only station in all of East Pakistan. DX reporter Salahuddin Dolar of Rajshahi alerted us to the fact that Bangladesh Betar celebrated its important 75th Diamond Jubilee anniversary with 4 days of congratulatory events beginning a few weeks ago on December 15th. And now here's a little bit of what Bangladesh Betar sounds like.
Assalamu alaikum. 8 a.m. This is Bangladesh Betar broadcasting on the morning of Friday, the 26th of Posh, the 17th of Rabiul Awal, and January the 9th. The news read by Mayuddin Babur. First, the headlines. The first phase of a 3-day Bisho Ijtema began on the bank of River Turag at Tongi through Ambayan this morning. The President and the Prime Minister greet the Muslim Ummah.
A bit of Bangladesh Beitar news there. You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Let's go to Australia now. Here's Bob Padula with his DX report.
Greetings to shortwave enthusiasts around the world. This is Bob Padula in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, with another edition of the Australian DX Report. These magazines provide news of shortwave broadcasting stations, monitoring summaries, propagation news, and other information concerning world international broadcasting. As I start to remind you that full detailed QSLs are available for correct reports received for these episodes. The address will be given at the end of the program. And to note that all times, days and dates given in our episodes are in UTC, and we use the 24-hour time system. The episodes are compiled from resources made available by the Electronic DXpress Radio Monitoring Association, which is based here in Melbourne. A solar activity report begins the program this time with information acknowledged to the Ionospheric Prediction Service in Sydney, New South Wales, here in Australia. The IPS reports that solar activity continues to remain at a low level. The 10.7 centimetre solar radio flux has dropped to 147. That's 147, and the daily equivalent smooth sunspot number has fallen to 101. Those figures are not expected to increase substantially in the immediate future. So we're still in the plateau of solar cycle number 24, which was expected to peak in November of 2013, but it would appear that the peak is now some way off. So while we're continuing to move through nearer the peak of the present sunspot cycle, activity will remain irregular and unpredictable. It just means that for the time being, long-haul multi-hop propagation on frequencies above about 14 megahertz on darkness or semi-darkness paths will not be very good. But frequencies above about 14 megahertz on long-distance circuits on daylight paths will be satisfactory. Now we have some shortwave station news concerning international broadcasting organisations. First of all, information of the Voice of Mongolia via the station known as Radio 700. The schedule is 1600 to 1630 on 7310 in English, and 1700 to 1730 on 6005 in English, and also between 2000 and 2030 on 3985 in English. And those broadcasts are non-directional, intended for Central Europe. Now, Radio Pakistan, according to the Russian DX blog, the transmissions of Radio Pakistan have been heard recently as follows: 0830 to 1100 on 15700 in Urdu to Western Europe, and also 1100 to 1110 on the same frequency 15700 with English to Western Europe, and 1330 to 1530 on 15725 to Near and Middle East in Urdu. Now, also from the Radio Bulgaria DX blog, some changes to the IBB services from Washington. First of all, Hello Darfur, that's the program being to the Darfur community in Africa. 0300 to 0330. The new frequency is 7215 from Sao Tome. That's actually broadcast to the Sudan in Arabic, and that channel replaces 9815. Radio Fardar 0400 to 0500, broadcasting to Western Asia in Persian 13800, and that replaces the transmitting site at Udon in Thailand in Persian. And 1600 to 1900 on 7585 from Udon in Thailand. That replaces the transmitting site at the Sri Lanka relay station at Irana Villa. And Radio Free Asia 2200 to 2300, the new frequency of 5875. Well, it's not really a new frequency. It's a new transmitting site from Kuwait in Tibetan, and it replaces the Tinian relay station in the Philippines. And the Voice of America 0130 to 0200. New frequency is 11820 from Irana Villa in Sri Lanka. The broadcast in Burmese replacing 11895, and 2330 to midnight 30 on 6150 from Udon in Thailand in Burmese, also replacing 6160. Now, some propagation information based on monitoring here in Melbourne, in Victoria, and southeastern Australia recently. The period between 1930 and 2000, that's the post-sunrise period here in Melbourne, has been quite good for transmissions in the top end of the 41 metre band, that's the 7 megahertz band. And this is a summary of some signals heard recently. 7350, the Voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran in English. And 7365, China Radio International from Beijing in Portuguese. And another frequency for China Radio International is 7385 from the Kashi transmitting site with broadcasts in Albanian. And 7315, the Voice of America, broadcasting in Kurdish from the Biblis relay station in Germany. And another frequency for China Radio International, 7360 from Serik in Albania, the relay station there in French. And 7375, a station which is not often reported worldwide, is the Voice of the Wilderness, a politically motivated station or politically organised station, broadcasting in Korean from Tajikistan from the Dushanbe relay station. And another channel for the Voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran is 7425 in Russian. And just next door on 7430, Radio Romania International in Romanian. And 7445, the BBC from the Madagascar relay station with English. And 7450, another Voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran broadcasting station. This is the Arabic service until closing at 1950. And 7520, Radio Fardar in Persian from the Kuwait transmitting station. And 7550, All India Radio in English. And 7570, the Voice of Korea from Pyongyang with programs in Spanish. And another frequency for Radio Fardar, also from Kuwait, is 7585. Now some station news again. This time, Far East Broadcasting Association. It's FIBA Radio in English. Station uses transmitting facilities around the world, and one of these is at Trincomalee in Sri Lanka. The frequency is 9720, and it uses this frequency from 1332 to 1347 to South Asia, English on Saturdays, and on Mondays transmissions are extended to 1417. Now, Tibet. The Voice of Tibet in Chinese and Tibetan, It's been reported by monitors in Europe on 11.692. That's between 1330 and 1400. And the frequency is actually varying slightly, but it's from Dushanbe. That's broadcasting to East Asia in Chinese and Tibetan. Parallel frequency is 15562. And other frequencies used by this station include 15548 from Dushanbe, 12:15 to 12:30 in Chinese, and 13:15 to 13:30 on 15542 in Chinese, and 14:15 to 14:30 on 15530 from Madagascar, the relay station there, in Tibetan to Central Asia, and also on 11517, the same time period, 14:15 to 14:30 to Central Asia in Tibetan, and that frequency replaces 15568. And Yemen, the Yemen Arab Republic, Radio Sano in English has apparently resumed to shortwave after a short absence. It's been heard by listeners in Europe between 1800 and 1900 on 6135, with non-directional transmissions to the Near and Middle East. And some interference from the Forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran on the adjacent frequency of 6140. So some information there based on monitoring observations made by shortwave enthusiasts in Europe recently. And that's all we have time for in our episode of the Australian DX Report, which came to you from Melbourne in Victoria, Australia. I'd just like to remind you that we offer full detail QSL cards showing Australian scenes and wildlife for correct reports received for these broadcasts. We also offer an email QSL service for reports sent via the internet or email. Full details about the QSL service are available at the Electronic DXpress homepage, which is simply edxp.org. So until our next program, this is Bob Padula in Melbourne in Victoria, Australia, wishing you all good listening. Thanks for being with us and good DX. See you soon.
Thanks very much, Bob. Mr. Munir KP in Sharjah, United Arab Emirates, tells us that he received a QSL card from Deutsche Welle early last year, verifying his reception of their relay broadcast from the nearby Dabaya transmitter station in Abu Dhabi. This relay transmission on 15640 kHz is important to him because the first shortwave broadcast he ever heard was from Deutsche Welle in 1982 while he was visiting in the home of a friend. At the time, he was living in his home state, Kerala, in southern India, and he wrote to Deutsche Welle at their office in New Delhi requesting a schedule. Listening to the broadcast from Germany and receiving a copy of the magazine Tune In sparked an interest in the monitoring of the international shortwave bands. Traditional music from the United Arab Emirates ends this edition of Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson. Next week, the NASB, National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters, anniversary. An important publication review, our Japan DX report, and our special QSL of the week will be a low-power tropical band station in Canada, heard in Australia. Several QSL cards are available for your reports on this program. Send your AWR and KSDA reception reports for Wavescan to the AWR address in Indianapolis, and also to the station your radio is tuned to, KVOH, WWCR, or WRMI, or to the AWR relay stations that carry Wavescan. Remember, too, But you can send a reception report to each of the DX reporters when their segment is on the air here in the program from Japan, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Australia, and India. They will verify with a colorful QSL card. Return postage and an address label are always appreciated. Our Wavescan address is Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. Our email address is wavescan@awr.org. That's wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI in Okeechobee, Florida. Till next week, very good listening to you.
علي المجد يا